there were aliens. And the aliens looked over at me and I said, shit, why didn't I keep my mouth shut? And they brought over to me a little, and I floated up into the air. He said to me, was it at the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory?
Do you believe in UFOs?
You're really good in your questions. I wanted to read you a little bit of this later, but if I try to sidestep you like I'm doing right now, then you're going to draw a conclusion. I know what he's doing there. He really believes in him, but he doesn't want to tell me. On the other hand, I can say, it's an interesting subject, or I can talk more about it, or I can say, I can neither confirm nor deny. And so there's lots of different things. Do you want me to tell you some stories?
Absolutely.
When I was a very small child, living in California, when I was a kid, was out in the front yard with my mom, walking around the ivy that my dad had planted, so instead of grass, so that he didn't have to cut the grass all the time, and just had the green ivy out there, big, huge field of green ivy. And I looked up there and said, Mom, what are those 5 silver things up there? What are those things? And she just said, they call those UFOs. Don't worry about them. They're fine. And another story from my weird family. Ingo Swan had some encounters with a UFO on the ground, and he snuck over a mountain and watched him and so forth and so on. And I asked Puthoff, do you trust what Ingo says? And he says, yes, absolutely. Ingo will never lie. He'll have mistakes and look at this and look at this. But if he says he was there, he saw one. When Joe and I both worked in Stargate together, same office, I had an incident where I was on top of a grassy knoll, which I now use to explain as again, forgetting the name. I actually have a picture of it. It's important to say this name. There it is. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. You know what that looks like?
I don't.
It's outside of San Francisco. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Anyway, so.
Do you mind if I text this to myself so we can put it on
Go ahead.
Screen?
The story that I'm not telling you is about my actual encounters with UFOs. So Joe and I are both working in Stargate. And one night I have this very strong, I'm standing on a grassy knoll area. And I'm looking around and there's lots of people, just regular Joes and Janes. Is that a good way to do that? Regular people there, and I'm looking around. And there's a sense of sort of being hypnotized or in a zone. I wish I knew that name. Do you know when the healers down in South America go around and fix your ears and fix your eyes and stuff? They're all kind of mesmerized.
In a trance.
Mesmerized, right? Well, these people that I was standing around with on the grassy knoll area were all sort of mesmerized. And they were like looking around, and there were aliens in between them, like interviewing them or talking to them and so forth. And I lost my composure. because I was doing training in remote viewing and out-of-body stuff and all that. And I spoke in my thing, I spoke up and said, well, I teach people how to get out of their body. And the aliens looked over at me and I said, shit, why didn't I keep my mouth shut? And they came over to me and they brought over to me a little, this is too big. It was just a little tiny thing that was round like this and had a needle thing here. And in here, there was filled with fluid of some kind that was the color of kind of brownish color. And it was much smaller, like this. And they came around me and circled me, and I'm still probably a little mesmerized again by that time, but I was like, I realized I said something that I shouldn't have said. And they stuck it in my leg and squeezed the brown part. And I floated up into the air. And they said, kind of like that. And I was like, the other people and other aliens didn't care. They looked up, you know, and say, hey, what is he doing floating? No, they didn't. It was, you know, they didn't, because of their mesmerization, they didn't seem to care too much that I was floating up in the air and so forth and so on.
Now, this is a dream, or this is real, or
let's just say this is an experience that I had.
this is an out-of-body experience. So you had an out-of-body experience in a grassy knoll. Is that correct?
No, let's not jump to conclusions until I come to the end, and then I'll say I give up. But so I had an experience, and my experience was I was on a grassy knoll, and the next morning I wake up and I go to work at Fort Meade, and Joe's in the office with everybody else, and I walk by Joe. Well, I'm sorry, Joe was there. Amongst the other people, Joe was there, and I saw him there. So
in the experience?
Yes,
okay.
I saw him in the experience. So I, with all the other people and the little aliens. So I went over to Joe and I said, hey, Joe, can I ask you something? He said, sure, what do you want? And I said, I was wondering if anything happened to you last night. He said, no, just all those aliens that you and I were with. I said, okay, thanks. And I turned around, walked out of the office, and Joe and I, to this day, have never spoken of it again.
Why? Why have you not spoken with him about that?
I don't know the answer to that, but we hadn't talked about it. Now, I did talk to Putoff about it. Sidebar, Putoff really believes in UFOs, okay? Coming back to Putoff, I said, I told him about my experience. Didn't tell him about Joe, I don't think. And he says, was it up at, what was the name of that place again?
Mount Hayes?
No. This.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay. He said to me, was it at the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory? And I said, really? You think it was there? Because I know where that place is. And he said, well, there's a lot of incidents up there that get reported.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.